All right. Hello, everyone. All right. So, it seems like we had the technical issues with the recording since week one. And so, what we're going to do is make sure that I provide those videos, and so you can kind of refer back to them. I'm also going to make a quiz two, right, available to you guys. And so, let's get started. Okay. All right. So, the first set of problems has to have to do with the order operation, right? So, but what are those? All right, so let's look at the order of operation. Okay. All right. So when we have an order operation, we always start with what we call the parentheses, right? Brackets and so on. So parentheses, whatever you have inside parentheses, you need to do those simplifications. You need to simplify the expression. All right, parentheses. So you have simple parentheses, you have curly brackets, you have brackets, and sometimes you may have the absolute value and you have some expression inside, and sometimes you may have the square root, right? And you may have something like 5 plus 2, and then put 5 plus 4, and then you will have to evaluate whatever 5 plus 4 is, and then take the square root of it, right? So that falls into the category of the first thing that you have to do for the order operation. Secondly, you have to do the exponents. Okay, so exponents, it will be a repeated multiplication, so such as 2 to the power of 3, which means that is 2 times 2 times 2, right? So that's what 2 to the power of 3 means. The exponent is 3. It tells the base, which is 2, how many times it has to be multiplied. Okay, so in this case it would be 8. So anyway, so that's 6 things that you're going to have to simplify. And then after that, it might be a combination, right? So the third part has to be multiplication or division, or I'm going to put it as division or multiplication. So you don't have to follow the PEMDAS, acronyms, right? Because people get confused. Sometimes they think that multiplication must come first, but that's not the truth. All right, so multiplication. And so for example, if you have 8 divided by 4 times 3, well, some of you may think that you have to do multiplication first. This is not correct. What you have to do first is whatever comes from the left, and 8 divided by 4 must be done first, right? So it will be 2, and then you multiply, and then at the end we'll get 6, right? So multiplication doesn't come first all the time. But in the next case, for example, if you have 4 times 4 divided by 2, then it's different. Multiplication comes first from the left, right? In this case, it will be 16, right? And then you divide by 2, okay? And 16 divided by 2 is 8, okay? So that combination must, you have to do this order for division or multiplication. So that comes first before you do addition and subtraction. So here, number 4, you have addition. I'm just going to put subtraction or addition, right? Okay, so for example, you can put 8 minus 4 plus 3. You will do 8 minus 4 first, that's 4, and then you add 3, and that's 7. Okay, and doesn't matter, right? So you start with the subtraction because that's the first thing that comes first from the left, and then you do the addition. But if you have 2 plus 4 minus 3, then you would do 2 plus 4, 6, and then you subtract 3, you get 3. Okay? This is the order that you have to follow. All right. Now, let's do some problems, right? So that's what we want to see the application. So let's do number 11 here. We have 9 squared minus 2 inside the parentheses. So we need to evaluate whatever is inside the parentheses, but inside the parentheses we also have exponents. So within the parentheses, we still need to follow the order operation. So we need to evaluate this 9 squared, which is 9 times 9, 81. So we're going to put 81 here, and we're going to subtract 2, and then times 6. Then now we still have 81 minus 2 in the parentheses, so we're going to put 79 times 6, and that's going to give us 9 times 6 is 54, 6 times 72, 6 times 7 is 42, 42 times 5 plus 5 is 47, so 474. Okay, you can use a calculator. I just did the mental calculation. Then you get the calculator, be ready for the next problems. Alright, so let's move on. So that was the first problem. So maybe we want another problem, a little bit more complex than that, right? So let's do the next two here. Alright, so here we have kind of a rational expression. The way you're going to handle that rational expression is that you're going to evaluate whatever is on top here, or you're going to apply the order operation on top, and then the one at the bottom. Okay? And that's what we're going to do. Okay, so the first thing here, we have division first and then multiplication, right? Just like we mentioned earlier, you do whatever is start from the left, and it's division, and then you're going to do the multiplication. So 100 divided by 10 is 10 times 2, right? So we are done with that, well, with the first step. And then 10 times 2 is 20. So we have 20 on top. So let's do the bottom part. So inside the parentheses, right, we have square root of 9 minus square root of 4. But we need to evaluate square root of 9 and square root of 4. Square root of 9 is 3, right? So parentheses 3 minus square root of 4 is 2. And then let's not forget here we have an exponent of 2, so we need to put the 2 here. And then we have the plus 1 on the outside. Okay? Alright, so we need to evaluate with the 3 minus 2 here. That's 1. And that's 1 to the power of 2. So 1 squared, or 1 to the power of 2, plus 1. And then 1 squared is 1 times 1. So which means that we have 1 times 1, which is 1, plus 1. And we evaluate 1 plus 1, which is 2. So it's 20 divided by 2. And at the end, we get 10. Okay? So this is the approach that you should have for this problem. Alright, so now let's move on to the next one, which is this one here. And so let's do this. Alright, so here you have a combination of parentheses and brackets, right? So you always do the inner parentheses. So in this case, you're going to have to evaluate this, and then this, and then, you work yourself inside out. Alright, so let's start. So the 4 does not change, so it's 4. Put the brackets here, and we're going to evaluate 5 minus 4 and 18 minus 16. 5 minus 4 is 1, and then it's 1 to the power of 2, right? Plus 18 minus 16 is 2, and it's 2 to the power of 2, right? Close brackets, and then plus 12. You notice that I did not change anything else, right? I just evaluated whatever was inside the parentheses. Now, I have to do the brackets, right? Whatever is inside the brackets, I need to evaluate. So here, I'm going to do 1 square, and then 2 square. So it's going to be 4, leave it as it is. 1 square is 1, 1 times 1. And 2 times 2 is 4, so plus 4. And then plus 12. Okay, so let's evaluate the whatever is in brackets. Again, we have 1 plus 4, that's going to be 5, so it's going to 4 and 5 here. This is 4 times 5 plus 12. And then here 4 times 5 is 20, and then 20 plus 12, and we get 32 as the final answer. Okay. All right, so that's that for this problem. So now let's kind of move on. All right, so here the multiplication, I'm not going to go over that because you can use a calculator, but we want to go into rounding, right? So we want to go into rounding numbers, and here we want to round to the nearest thousands, okay? So what do they mean by the nearest thousands? That means that what I want to do is have those three digits here being zeros, right? All right, so here we have the ones, right? The 7 represent the ones. The 8 represent the tens, so the ones, the tens. And then 3 here represent the hundreds, right? And here the 6 represent the thousands. So, in order for me to round to the nearest thousand, I need to look at the value 3, which is the value before the thousands place, right? And if 3 is less than 5, then the thousands place remain the same, meaning the 6 will remain the same. If it was 5 or greater, then that 6 will be adding 8 digits to it, okay? So here, when I round this, because of the 3 is less than 5, so 6 remains the same. Okay, so my answer is going to be 2 and 6. 6 remains the same, and everything else is replaced by a 0. So 26,000 is how you round this value to the nearest thousands. Okay, but let me use another one, another problem, right? I want to round to the nearest. All right, so here it's a little bit different because you want to round, you want to estimate the sum by rounding each number to the nearest 100, right? So right here, I want to round this to the nearest 100. Same thing here, same thing here. All right, so the nearest 100 is the 3, and for here is the 2, and here is the 9. Okay, so we need to look at the value next to it on the right. Here we look at the 8, the 1, and the 6. Okay, so for the first one here, 8 is greater than 5, so therefore we need to add 1 to 3, right? So there's going to be 7, 4, and then followed by 3 zeros, or 2 zeros, I'm sorry. Plus, here, the 1 is less than 5, so therefore 2 remains the same. So we're going to write 4 and 2, followed by 2 zeros. And then the third one is a little bit trickier, this one, because 6 here, well, 6 is greater than 5, that's the easy part. And then you're going to add 1. But if you add 1 to 9, you get 2 digits, right? And I cannot put 10 right next to the, I cannot just replace the 9 with 10. Otherwise, I'm going to have 2, 1, 0, 6, 2, right? And so that 10 is going to carry that 1 here, and we're going to replace that 9 with a 0. Okay? So here is going to be 2 plus 1, 3. Here, the 1 and 9 is 10, but we just the tens from that addition, that 1 is right here, and the 0 is going to replace the 9, and then followed by 2 zeros. Okay? So, I've done my job here. I've rounded each number to the nearest 100. Now I need to estimate just by adding, right? So, how do I add? It's very simple. All the digits that are in the same position, I'm going to add them up, right? So 7 is 1,000, 4 is 1,000, and 3 is 1,000. So 7 plus 4 is 11, 11 plus 3 is 14, so it's going to be 14,000, right? And then the 4 here, the 2, and the 0 are hundreds. So I'm going to do 4 plus 2, 6, 6 plus 0, 6 plus 0 is 6, so it's in the hundreds, so it's going to be 600, followed by the 2 other digits, 0 and 0. So 14,600 is your estimation for this sum. Okay? Alright, so you can do that with the same. Alright, so let's do some word problems. Oops. Alright, so let me go to another one because we saw this. Alright, so right here we have subtract 4 from 53, right? So if I'm taking away 4 from 53, the operation has to be subtraction, right? So it's going to be 53 minus 4, and that's going to give me 49. Okay? Alright, so finding the sum is adding two numbers, right? So this one is easy. It's 34 plus 205. That's 239. Right? When we talk about product, we talk about multiplication. So it's going to be, find the product of 15 times 307. And we do the calculation. So 15 times 307 is equal to 4,605 or 4,605. Okay? And then when we talk about quotient, the quotient is a division, right? So it's basically 126 divided by 13, right? And obviously we here the answer will have some remainder, so we need to do the long division. So it's going to be 126 divided by 13, right? And the highest multiple that's going to get you close to 126 is going to have to be 9, because if you're using 10, that's going to be 130, right? 130 is greater than 126, so you figure 9 will be the value, right? So 13 times 9 is equal to 117. So you put 117 right at the bottom, but you have to subtract 117 from 126 because it's a process of elimination. And then 126 minus 117 is 9, right? Since 13 does not go into 9, and we're not dealing with decimal numbers, so 9 is my remainder. Okay, so that's that. So 9 is your quotient, and 9 is your remainder. So 9 remainder 9 is your answer. All right, so let's get to the next problem. Give me 1 second. Let me get a sip of my little Sprite. All right, so Amy teaches Chinese lesson for $45 per student for a 6-week session. From one group of students, she collects $1,575. Find how many students are in the group. Okay, so what information do I have? We know that each student have to pay 45. At the end of the 6 weeks, she got 1,575. To figure out the number of students, all she has to do is the amount collected, 1,575, divided by 45, right? That's going to give you the number of students. So let's do this calculation. So 1,575 divided by 45, and that's 35. So she had 35 students. Okay. Okay, so let's look at this problem here. Svetlana, oh, hold on. Svetlana, must be a Russian name or Eastern European name. Svetlana is trading her car in on a new car. The new car costs $23,025. Her car is worth $6,998. How much more money does she need to buy the new car? Okay, so the new car costs that value here, and by trading her car and collecting that money, she will get about $7,000, $6,998 to be more accurate. So all we have to do is do the difference of those two, and that's what Svetlana will need in order to buy the new car. Okay, so let's figure that out. So 23,025 minus 6,998, and that's going to give you, and you use your calculator, so 23,025 minus 6,998, and that gives you a remaining balance of, not balance, but you know what she will need, 16,027. Okay. All right. Let's look at the next one here. It's a pretty interesting one. All right. So the seats in the lecture hall are arranged in 24 rows, with 8 seats in each row. How many seats are in the room? All right. So if you want to look at it from a picture perspective, a pictorial perspective, then, so if you have rows, so this is row number 1, right? And then you can create 8 more or 7 more to get, or 24 more, I'm sorry. So you 24 more. So row 1, 2, 3, and then you go to 24, correct? So that's row 24. Okay? So now let's say this creates kind of a rectangle, right? But we know that for each row we have what? 8 seats. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So basically, this is what I should get, right? Right. So all those rows. That's row number 1. That's row all the way down to row 24, right? All right, so that's kind of a rectangle. So if I have 8 seats, so I have 24. So I have 24 rows here, right? And then here I have 8 seats per row. So 8 seats. So you treat it as like a rectangle. So it's going to be 24 times 8, right? And that's going to give you 192 seats. And that's it, 24 times 8. So you can look at it that way. All right, so let's move on. All right, so let's do some geometry type of problem, right? A rectangle, yeah, that would be good. All right, so here we want to find the perimeter and the area of the figure here, okay? And so that's pretty much, it's easy, right? Well, I'm saying it's easy because I know it. But finding the perimeter is pretty much adding all the sides of a figure, right? So if you're not talking about a circle, then you're adding the sides, right? So one side that is 6, this side is also 6 since it's a square, 6 and 6. So basically the perimeter is 6 times 4, right? So P is for perimeter, and 6 inches times 4 because you have 4 sides. And that gives you 24 inches. Okay. Now, the area is a little bit different because now you're looking for the area inside the enclosure, right? So this is the enclosed side, and whatever is inside, that's your area. And you calculate that by doing the product of the two sides only. If you do the product of those two sides, it will give you the square inches of the area in square inches. So area, in this case, would be 6 times 6, or you can say 6 squared. And that will give you so 36. Make sure that you don't put inches because that would be incorrect. You will have to put square. Inches. Okay, so that's how you find the perimeter and the area. All right, so let's do that for a rectangle. What is the perimeter? Well, here, rectangle will have two different sides, a length and a width. So here for 15, these two sides are 15 miles, right? Those are the width. And for the length, those two sides, so these two sides are the same, and here, these two sides are the same, 45 miles. Okay? So if I'm looking for the perimeter, I need to add these two length, and that's 45 times 2. You can put it like that, or you can put 45 plus 45. And then you add the other two sides, which are 15 miles times 2. Okay? And that's going to give you, so that's, you can put it like that if you want. And 45 times 2 is 90. And then 15 times 2 is 30. And so the perimeter is 120 inches. Right? Now the area, just like we talked about for the square, all we have to do is multiply two sides, the two different sides, the 15 and the 45. Okay? So multiply 45 inches times 15 inches. I'm sorry, we're in miles, and I forgot, so well, 120 miles, and here 45 miles, and then 15 miles. Okay, so what is 45 times 15? Is 675. 675. And then here we have to put square miles. Okay, so that's that. Okay, so the rest, let me see. Let's look at, those problems here. Finding the opposite of a number, right? So if I have a positive number, which is 2/3, right? The opposite of it, in terms of its sign, is negative 2/3. Okay? That's my answer, negative 2/3. Now, let's not confuse opposite with the absolute value of a number, right? So if I have two vertical bar with a value inside, it could be negative or positive. Let's put 5. Then the answer will always be positive. It doesn't matter if it's negative 1.5 or positive 5. The answer, the outcome is always positive. Why? Because the absolute value of a number, so absolute value of a number, oops, represents the distance between 0 and that value on a number line, right? So if you're looking at the number line, so this is a number line, you have 0 here. So let's say I want to evaluate negative 1.5, so I have negative 1 here and negative 2 here. So negative 1.5 should be here, right? So the distance between 0 and 1.5, so this is negative 1.5. So the distance is this, right? But a distance is never negative, right? So when you drive, if I were to drive backwards 5 feet, then I'm actually driving 5 feet, but it's just backward. That doesn't mean that it's negative. It's still a distance. So here I am driving, if it's from 0 to negative 1.5, it's still 1.5 units. Okay? So if I go to from 0 to 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? It is the distance between 0 and 5, which is 5 units. If I was at negative 5 here, it will still be 5 units because it's a distance. Okay? So that's it. That's the difference between opposite and absolute value. Okay? Alright, so I wanted to stress those two things. Oh, here, let's look at this one here, because this might be confusing, because here we have the absolute value of a number here, negative 67. Just like I mentioned, this is positive, right? It has to be 67, but because you have the negative on the outside, you keep the negative, right? So here, the negative is not being affected by the absolute value because it's on the outside, but that negative here, right, is being impacted because it's saying, hey, I want the distance between 0 and negative 67, and that's 67, but keep the negative sign that is on the outside. Okay, so that's why my final answer is negative 67. Okay. So that's that. So the rest here, you can use a calculator, right? So, simple addition, subtraction, division, and multiplication with signed numbers. You can use a calculator in order to do those. And this will complete week number 1.